So much for coming on. If you wouldn't mind, introduce yourself. Who are you? What do you do? All that good stuff.
My name is Taryn Southern. I'm an AI artist and advisor, and I've been working in the space of emerging technology for 2 decades. I'm fascinated by technology and its role in culture and business and the way it shapes our personal lives. So I really help people figure out how to integrate emerging technologies into their work and their life the best way possible.
You really inspired me at whenever you're talking at Bobby's retreat about everything you've been doing and your journey and how you started, all that good stuff with the American Idol and all that. Would you mind briefing over just a little bit of that? Because it was so inspiring.
Sure. It's so hard because I feel in many ways the American Idol experience almost feels like a different lifetime and so
Yeah.
unrelated to what I'm doing now. But I share the story in some of the talks that I give because it helps convey the ways in which technology oddly solve odd problems in our lives. And the story that I like to recount is one where back in 2004, slept out at the Pasadena Rose Bowl. I was 17 years old, still in high school, um, desperate to get onto my favorite show on television, American Idol, and ended up making it into the semifinals at that time. But unbeknownst to me, would have the most humiliating moment I'd experienced in my life up until that point on that show. So we got into the semifinals and I was developing worse and worse stage fright every round that I continued forward, and my confidence was starting to falter. I was comparing myself to the other contestants, thinking, well, I'm not as good as they are. I don't have a traditional music background. I've never performed in front of a crowd outside of my high school theater. And a lot of them had a lot more experience. And so by the time I got to the final top 30, I was terrified and couldn't think straight. And I got up on that stage and I forgot every single word to a song and just stood there, mouth open, while the music played in the background. So that was a horrifying experience, obviously very edifying for a young person. And I went back to college with my tail between my legs saying, I'm never going to sing again. I can never let something humiliating like that happen again. And I essentially uh, didn't come back to music until many, many years later through my experiments with artificial intelligence and finding this tool that inevitably allowed me to conquer all of the limitations and fears that I had built up in my psyche around this terrifying expression of my talent and creativity. And that really was a light bulb moment for me. This was back in 2017 when I started experimenting with AI technologies for music creation, audio and video creation. And I saw it as this incredible tool that felt very creative, because it was allowing me to essentially take the elements that I did best in music and work with those elements rather than simply deny myself the opportunity completely to work with music. And this was the case with all areas of creativity. So that's really what I focus on now, is how to use AI and other emerging technologies as tools in our toolkit.
Yeah, and I know when you showed us how you made certain songs with AI, I thought that was just so cool, and how many tools there are that you can use. And I think, this being a real estate podcast, technology is so important. And I think a lot of real estate agents, investors, people in the business are just so archaic when it comes to technology. Um, what and I'm not sure if you dive into any real estate apps or any real estate AI, but is there anything in particular you would recommend for investors, agents, anything to just maybe look at?
Well, it's so funny. I was actually approached by a very large luxury real estate firm based here in Los Angeles, 6 months ago to help them look at their strategy for AI for the coming years. And so that sort of forced me to look into this a little bit more. But I always caution, I'm not a salesperson. I really I really look at these tools as storytelling devices. How can we use them to enhance productivity amongst our internal teams? How can we use it to enhance our external storytelling, to connect with customers? But I'm not a CRM expert. Um, and so and that's just something I'm not passionate about. So it's not where I spend my time. But here's what I will say. The possibilities for how you employ AI, how you think about AI, how it could help your bottom line, how it could help you harness the things that you do best in your job are endless. I mean, just like the possibilities are so endless, and it's the people working within each industry that know the ins and outs of the industry that will be able to come up with those creative use cases. But in the very short span that I was looking into real estate, I'll give you a handful of the possibilities that I was seeing and imagining. And this was 6 months ago. So keep in mind that AI is on this exponential growth trajectory. Things are happening so fast. If you blink, you're going to miss the next tool. And it's so overwhelming. It can be overwhelming to try and keep up with it all. So I always tell people, don't get overwhelmed. Just, you know, when you have a second, when you have an hour, 2 hours, spend some time playing with the tools that you find, and start seeing what will work for you, because it is changing so fast. On the plus side, companies that are very nimble and can play and can adopt are going to do very well in this kind of environment. So, okay, back to actually the answering your question, which is where are some areas within real estate that I think opportunity lies. One of them is in customer customer interaction. That is the ability to, let's say you're a real estate agent, you have all kinds of clients, and you want to maintain some level of personability with those clients. There are now AI companies that enable you to send personalized audio messages, personalized text messages, personalized video messages using your voice, your likeness, all of this, of course, behind a safe and secure data wall, to allow you to actually engage with customers in a meaningful and personalized way, without you having to actually lift a finger. So that's one example. Another example is using artificial intelligence to do detailed mock-ups and floor plans of homes. You know, a lot of times when people are looking online at a potential home, they want to see a floor plan. They really want to have their bearings about them. They want to see a three-dimensional visual mock-up of a home. I mean, all of this can be automated using just your iPhone and an AI tool. It's really remarkable. You know, the spatial recognition technologies with iPhone, or with Android phones for that matter, have become quite good. So to be able to walk into a home and get a 3D spatial map immediately of that home, and then turn that spatial map into a visualization project, is really exciting. And now on top of that, let's say you've got clients that you have tagged with their particular style. They might, you know, some clients really appreciate 1950s kind of, I'm trying to think of the right term for someone who's into 1950s home decor versus someone who likes an ultra modern look. You can now use these visualization technologies to actually show these clients with a little imagination, maybe a little bit of renovation money, what the home could look like in their particular style. I mean, people are remarkably visual, and it's very hard for them to often imagine what the possibilities of a home might be until they actually see it. And so you can kind of take the guesswork out of the game for them, which opens up just a whole lot of opportunity for people looking to sell properties that maybe aren't quite the right fit as is, but there's a vision for the future. There are other exciting use cases in terms of staging homes and being able to connect to furniture and accessories more easily and more automatically online, and testing out the different furniture stagings through, again, these visual mapping applications. So there's just a handful. And then that doesn't even begin to scratch the surface of just what you can do with your marketing and communications team, your external messaging, your visuals, what you're using to actually um, the write-ups that you're using for properties and how you can appeal to different types of audiences given the home write-ups. So there's a lot. There's a lot that people can be doing right now. And you have probably better ideas than I do because you know this industry, right? And I've spent no more than 2 days looking into maybe what kinds of things are important to the real estate market.
Yeah, I mean, this is just so cool. It blew my mind when you spoke over this, and like I said, I appreciate you coming on to tell us about this. I know it's very overwhelming for most of the population, and you enjoy playing with it so much, and you're the expert. I remember you showed us an AI avatar, which I played around with too, but that was pretty insane. So for people wanting to make an avatar of themselves, what is that? How does that look like? How would they even get started on doing that?
Yeah, I mean, it's just getting easier and easier and easier, and the quality is getting better and better and better. So, an AI avatar is essentially a digital replica of you. And this digital replica of you have control over. It can operate in time and space. You can have it say whatever you want it to say. And to make these digital avatars, it really only requires about 30 to 60 seconds of video footage of you speaking, usually in a well-lit environment. You obviously want to make sure that if you're using your phone that you are in focus, sort of basic things like that. But sites like HeyGen, that's an AI generator that I think has done a remarkable job at creating these AI avatars for very little money and with very high quality. So you make these recordings, and then off of that recording, it builds this digital replica of you. And from that point going forward, you can create video content simply by submitting text. So much like the text to video content that people are seeing now online with Sora and Midjourney, where you're basically providing a prompt and all of a sudden a video is created out of nowhere. You can do the same thing with your AI avatar. So I might want my AI avatar to do a happy birthday message for one of my friends, or I might want my AI avatar to reach 2,000 customers and say each of their first names, in these individualized video messages. Well, now I can do that without ever having to turn on my camera. And I can also use language translation tools so that my AI avatar can speak any language in my voice, not with someone else's voice, not with a weird audio dub. In my voice, I can speak fluent Mandarin, French, you name it. So if you have international clients, you can actually now be reaching them where they are, truly connecting with them in their own language, which is so cool. And you'll sound exactly like you, just very multilingual.
That's so cool. And so how would people even find out? I guess you gave the tool Hey Jim, but say that they wanted to do something else, whatever that was. How would they find these AI tools? Is there a course out there? Do they go searching in Chat GPT or Google, or how do they do that?
It is such a wild, wild west out there right now. I mean, just think about the fact we talked about this at Bobby's. ChatGPT has only been around for a year and a month. Okay. And people are building these applications on top of GPT's open source technology. So these applications are coming out of nowhere every single day. There's no real entity around that's the consumer reports of AI apps. And so really the only way to learn is through people like me who are playing and experimenting and keeping spreadsheets of our of what we're generating and kind of the pros and cons of each of these applications. It's a mess out there right now, Travis. So the benefit is if you have the time, you're going to discover the next tool that will accelerate your business. But of course, most people don't have the time and energy to go about experimenting with these things. Here's what I recommend. And I don't remember if we talked about this, but I recommend every company hire someone, and it can be an intern. It could be, an internship with a college student, which quite frankly might be more advantageous at this point because college kids are just going to be so much more adept at using these technologies. But hire someone to basically be your chief AI officer, so to speak, someone who's going to experiment with these different tools within your industry. that's kind of on guard for what are the tools that would most benefit, most streamline our specific industry, and even more importantly, like meet the very specific challenges and needs of your company, because every company obviously is so different. And if you do that right now, you will be a year ahead of the curve, because everyone else is floundering, figuring out what they should be using, what they shouldn't be using. And there's only a handful of large enterprise-based tools like Microsoft's AI tools, et cetera, which are not very specific, industry specific. And so I think it's a really interesting way to take advantage of the opportunities right now, is just having someone who's young and hungry get in there, or whatever. They can be old and hungry, but just someone who's interested and engaged, get in there and start experimenting on behalf of your company, and make recommendations that can work for you.
That is a huge nugget. I'm already thinking in my head, I might hire another VA that's my chief AI officer.
There you go. There you go. I mean, you can also hire a consultant like me. We're just more expensive. So I recommend having someone who's dedicated and really kind of spending the time, even if it's just a day a week, right? That will add meaningful value to your business, because there's just no way that any industry is not going to be massively impacted by this. And it's really all about how fast can you adopt and integrate the tools. And I just want to say, like, I don't want to make this sound like I'm encouraging the race to the bottom, because a lot of people are very scared, and reasonably so, about what these tools mean, not just for their jobs, but for, like, what is society going to look like when we're integrating all these tools, many of which sort of take over a lot of processes that have been done by humans. And so I'm not saying to not be thoughtful about it. I do think that we're going to just this year is going to be a huge learning curve for most industries on sort of what's possible. But I think now is the time to be thoughtful. Now is the time to, like, take your time, figure it out, know that if you're doing anything right now, you're already way ahead of the curve. So there's no need to scramble and change absolutely everything in your business model in one fell swoop.
That's awesome. And that's cool that you're able to help these companies integrate this. And it sounds like you have a real passion for it too. So
I love it. And I love it because I genuinely believe, off of based on my experiences using these tools. And granted, most of my use cases are on the creative front, communications, marketing, like writing, video, audio content. And I come from the storytelling world and the entertainment world, where people are very, very precious about how they view creativity. And there's been this long held belief that creativity should only be this distinctly human thing. And I really, really disagree. I find working with these tools to be a highly creative experience. It's not dissimilar from when DAW music workstations came out in the 90s, and traditional musicians were up in arms about these tools that electronic musicians were now using to make music, right? It was like, well, that's not real music. But here we are decades later in electronic dance music and electronic pop. I mean, you almost don't hear any pop song without electronic merged into it. DJs have become huge careers for a lot of people. And I don't think most people would argue that that's wholly uncreative. I think it takes a lot of creative work. So I'm excited about people discovering what I've discovered in working with these tools, realizing that automating some of the annoying things about what we do does free up more time and energy and cognitive bandwidth to work on harder problems, to work on the more creative parts of the business. And I find that just incredibly liberating and exciting. So I'm just excited about everyone else getting to experience what I'm experiencing.
heck yeah. Nicole, do you have a question?
I guess my question would be, just because you see a lot of, like, the forefront, like, what do you say to the people that are worried about, people stealing their audios and using it to to just commit different crimes or whatever the case may be and stuff like that. Like people are really worried about AI, obviously, but you know,
Yeah, I mean, I share their concerns. I do not diminish them whatsoever. If anything, I'm terrified of what is going to happen in the world of misinformation. I mean, we already live in a society where it's so hard to make sense of truth and reality just with our media landscape, never mind when we start adding these crazy tools in there. So I'm the first to not diminish those concerns. They are real concerns. It's going to be a huge problem. I do think we're going to solve it. I think we're going to figure it out. You know, there's these big tech companies are working on a number of different sort of technology labeling products that allow us to always know when something has been artificially generated. There are ways for them to determine that on the back end. It's just about proliferating those products and making them available and then educating the public so they know what to look for. But it's going to be a problem. And I think that that this year in particular, I'm very concerned about sort of what it means for our democracy. But those things usually sort themselves out over time. The issues with licensing and content, we had all these same problems when YouTube launched in 2006. There was a lot of concerns from traditional tech companies. Well, what do we do now that our TV show is online and so is using actors' likeness without their permission? And all of that got sorted out with more technology. There were companies that emerged as a result of these problems and created technology layers that address those problems. So now there's copyright ID, content ID, all of these things that that provide artists with royalties every time their content is uploaded onto YouTube. So that's all been automated. And I think we're going to see the exact same thing happen here with AI. Artists will provide will basically give permission as to whether or not they will allow their likeness or their voice to be replicated in use of AI. And then for projects that actually end up making money, I think those artists will end up collecting royalties. So it's whenever like it usually just takes some time for the monetization piece to get itself worked out. But once it does, then people tend to change their tune about something.
Yeah,
awesome. Thank
thank you so much for coming on here, and I appreciate you dropping all this wisdom. I know it's a uncharted territory, and you're the expert, so I just really wanted to get you on. Where can people find you if they want, to maybe I know you offer consulting? I know that you're doing all sorts of big things in this space. Where can they find you?
I'm most active on Instagram. I love Instagram. So if they want to find me, Instagram.com/Taryn Southern.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Have a great evening, and we appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks, Travis.
Ma'am, have a good
Take
one.
care. Bye.
Bye.